Belgorod region, Gladkov said that one person was killed and 23 others were injured as a result of numerous attacks by the armed forces of Ukraine during the day. According to the governor, the Belgorod region and districts were subjected to Ukrainian attacks. The governor has added that among 23 civilians injured, 3 were children. He noted that 2 boys were seriously injured and have undergone surgery, and that all necessary medical care has been provided in full. Meanwhile, Russia had earlier said that its forces had launched strikes on Ukrainian railway infrastructure, while Ukraine had said that its troops had hit Russian radar stations. According to the war report from the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Russian army attacked Ukraine's 147 areas, including trains used to transport weapons and equipment, and to the Donbass theatre, energy facilities and launch sites. Now we're joined by Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's a senior strategic and defense expert. He joins us live from New Delhi. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World to discuss the latest escalations in Europe's defining crisis. Of course, these just are merely the latest developments. We are reeling from another strike, numerous barrage of the Ukrainian capital of Kiev, which happened earlier on today, killing numerous civilians in the capital, where hundreds of drones flew over there. What can you tell us about the current state of that conflict, and also, of course, the diplomatic backdrop where Russia says it does want peace, but actions say otherwise?
Thank you, Thomas, for bringing me to this discussion. I don't think Russia wants peace as of now, because we can see the offensive in a very high state of tempo as far as Russia is concerned. And Donetsk, western part of Donetsk and Kharkiv areas and Sumy areas, Zaporozhye, all these areas have been subjected to a heavy assault by the Russians. So now we are seeing a kind of a riposte because you must remember that winters are approaching. And in winters, what happens is the logistic areas become extremely important. So I am seeing a kind of re-strategization by the Ukrainians and the Russians also, because both of them are trying to target energy infrastructure and logistic nodes, because these are going to become very important in winters, and especially the power supply areas and the nuclear power plants. So I see this kind of campaign, and Belgorod is only around about 35 to 40 kilometers from the border. And on the other side, north of it is Kharkiv. So if you see the area, there have been artillery strikes and drone strikes both. And it is within the artillery range of the medium guns, which can go up to 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers at times, depending upon the type of ammunition they use. So now the basic intention of the Ukrainians, I feel, is to stretch the Russian air defenses, because Russian air defenses are quite widely dispersed, and they would be testing, in this circumstance. The second aspect is that a redeployment of the Russian troops is also being aimed at. Because if you want to blunt an offensive which is going full steam, you will have to do some kind of a diversionary attack. So this, I feel, in military parlance, it is a kind of a diversionary attack, and it is basically aimed to redeploy the Russian troops. And as a matter of fact, if you see the Russian pattern also, Russian pattern has also been on the similar lines, because Russia has targeted the Ukrainian rail network a number of times. If you analyze the Russian part of the strategy also, 21,700 kilometers is the rail network in Ukrainian, and almost 10,000 kilometers of this rail network has been damaged or destroyed by the Russians over a period of time. This has impacted the mobilization and the moving up of the logistics as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, and that is why we are seeing a similar kind of a strategy being employed by the Ukrainians, as I mentioned to you earlier, that the winters are approaching.
Yes.
And basically, the focus right now is not capture of territory, but destruction of the logistic nodes and the energy infrastructure, and that is what I am seeing actually happening as of now.
Of course, and you did mention the winter there. Dr. Kochar, how much can winter be weaponized, particularly, of course, in Eastern Europe, where, I mean, the temperatures, of course, can go way below zero. And Russia and Ukraine, of course, aim for that energy infrastructure. What's your analysis there?
You see, my analysis is if you see the pattern of the last 4 years, and if we see the winter campaigns which have been conducted by the Russians as well as the Ukrainians, the movement of the armored columns and the movement of the convoys and the heavy vehicles becomes difficult because of the snow factor and the slushy factor and the mud and the ground terrain factors. So we actually see that in winters, the campaign is more centered on the air power, on the missiles attacks, on the drones attacks, and on targeted energy infrastructure, because this energy infrastructure in winters, if you target them, it's going to pinch, or it is going to hurt the people of Ukraine also. Because if you see a large number of people get together in metros or in such safer areas, and where centralized energy resources are available, and of course generators have also been used in abundance by the Ukrainians. But what is happening now is all these three winter campaigns, if you study, there has been a lot of destruction on the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, and I think a similar kind of a strategy is going to be employed by the Russians this time also.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Kochar, for giving us that insight on the ongoing conflict in Eastern Europe. We now move on over to the Indo-Pacific for our next story, where South Korean President Lee Jae-myung pledged to bolster cooperation with Southeast Asian nations to combat transnational crime, especially to root out organized criminal groups operating across the region. Speaking at the ASEAN Republic of Korea in Kuala Lumpur, President Lee said that the South Korean National Police Agency would enhance investigative cooperation with ASEAN chiefs of police to tackle rising cross-border crime networks, including scam centers that have proliferated in border areas and exploited young victims. According to President Lee, ASEAN is one of South Korea's largest trading partners, with Seoul having invested a cumulative $8.5 billion in ASEAN. He also noted that South Korean companies are driving ASEAN's industrialization and economic growth in industries such as automobiles, steel and electronics. Let's listen in to what President Lee had to say.
최근 법 집행 사각지대인 국경 지역을 중심으로 스킴센터 등 조직적 범죄 단지가 확산되고 있고, 안타깝게도 많은 청년들이 초국가 범죄의 희생양이 되고 있습니다. 이에 한국경찰청은 아세아나 폴가의 수사 공조를 통해 조직적 범죄 단지를 건절하고 초국가 범죄가 이 지역에서 더 이상 발붙일 곳이 없도록 협력을 강화해 나갈 것입니다. 아세안 각국 및 아세안 차원에서의 긴밀한 형사, 사법 공조를 통한 문제 해결 또한 모색해 나가겠습니다. 이제 아세안은 한국의 3대 교역 대상이고, 한국은 누적 85억 불에 달하는 ODA를 통해 아세안의 미래에 투자했습니다. 한국 기업들은 자동차, 철강, 전자 등에서 아세안의 산업화와 경제 성장을 견인하고 있습니다.
Okay, we're now joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He is a journalist for the Korea Herald and he joins us live from Busan. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Kumar. Of course, South Korea joins a network of East Asian and Southeast Asian countries trying to root out this transnational crime, especially scam networks. What more can you tell us about South Korea's efforts to root out these criminals in that region?
Almost since last few weeks, this transnational crime issue between Cambodia and Korea has been in the center, and there has been huge backlash among the people in Korea. The sentiments are very against. There had been a kind of anger and anger in the perceptions of Koreans about Cambodians even, and the government side was also trying to somehow address this issue, and this should be seen as an extension of South Korean government to showcase a zero tolerance approach on this issue. As you have correctly mentioned, just now that ASEAN is third largest trade partner of Korea, and ASEAN and Korea, both sides want to achieve $300 billion of trade in coming years. But in order to achieve that, only comprehensive strategic partnerships won't work. This is the tone of South Korea and the South Korean people. And that is why if you see the vision of President Lee Jae-myung today that he has pointed out, he has clearly said that C means contributor. I mean CSP initiative, that vision that he is talking about is about South Korea as a contributor for ASEAN youth dream and hope. S stands for springboard for innovation and development growth, and P as a partner for stability. So to achieve these kind of vision, these transnational crimes must be taken very seriously and with zero tolerance approach. And President Lee wants to see ASEAN-Korea relations develop into a relationship with more than 15 million people of activated people-to-people ties. So if you see these visions, South Korea wants to take ASEAN along with it, but these kind of transnational crime, and many Korean youth had been suffering since years, and it is a very serious concern. It's not just about from a diplomatic thought point of view, but it has to be seen from a human rights perspective also.
And Dr. Kumar, while praising the relationship with ASEAN countries and South Korea, President Lee, he said that South Korea is driving the industrialization of Southeast Asia, and spoke of industries such as automobiles and electronics. What more can you tell us about those industries that are those South Korean industries that are thriving in those Southeast Asian countries?
Thomas, when it comes to industrial support and the Korean companies' investment in ASEAN, Vietnam has been the center in the last few years. More than 10,000 Korean companies are operating there. Singapore has been very good destination for South Korea. Malaysia also has good ties. Thailand is also trying to. If you see these countries, they want South Korean investment, and their tourism also is very much dependent on South Koreans. I forgot to mention Philippines here, and they had been in a very good relationship with South Korea. If you see the influx of the EPA workers in Korea also, ASEAN has been one of the largest beneficiaries. So if you take these things into consideration, ASEAN needs South Korea, and ASEAN countries have been having a very healthy relationship with South Korea, and so many things had been happening in the last one and a half decade. We can say just this Cambodia issue cannot undermine the potential of ASEAN-Korea relationships and the future of this relationship. So people here in Korea are very hopeful that these issues will be definitely addressed, and we can see that Malaysia as ASEAN chair is also very seriously taking this issue. And today we came to know also that Thai and Cambodia also, they like these two countries also have sorted some problems out in near the border, signing an agreement. So seeing all these, there is a positivity here in South Korea that this issue also will be tackled. But yes, the industrial cooperation as well as investments will not be affected that much. Maybe in Cambodia, of course, there are demands here in South Korea, especially in the political circles too, to minimize the ODA support. But still, it looks like the relationship has not gone up to that extent. So, but it is up to Cambodian authorities to somehow cement the ties, because it takes years, decades, and centuries to build ties. Like Rome is not built in a day. Just like that, relationships are not built in a day. So I think people-to-people contact and industrial cooperation, all these investments, they will remain intact. But there has to be some sort of zero tolerance approach from the Cambodian side also. This is what South Korea wants to listen and see it in action.
Yes, Dr. Kumar, thank you very much. Do stay with us. When we move over to the Middle East, where top Hamas official